What's up everyone, and welcome back to my studio. In this tutorial video, we're going to take a good hard look at tree structure. So let's get started. So let's start off with the optimal tree structure and why that isn't a possibility in nature, for the most part. You see, a tree wants to grow in its optimal shape. This is the shape a tree wants so desperately to be, but it can't. Our lovely Earth rotates on a 23-degree tilt and moves east to west, from our perspective anyway. So this causes an energy, heat, food delivery system that is uneven. This uneven delivery system can cause additional growth of more branches than is optimal for the tree, as well as advanced growth of the limbs. Now, does this matter for your drawing? Well, maybe. The reason is location. Trees in different growth zones will be dominant to different sides. Northern hemisphere trees are dominant southeast, while southern hemisphere trees are northeast dominant. The closer to the equator you are, the bigger the foliage the tree has, and less branches. Compare a palm tree to an oak tree to a fir tree. Less availability of food in the form of light produces a lot more tiny leaves and more branches over a smaller surface area to absorb that light. This makes the tree more efficient. So let's move on to the structures and shapes these trees take in our main drawing. So I have here a line to indicate where the ground would be, and three areas with different environments. On the left, with the little shoreline, is a wet climate. The middle is an average climate, and on the right is a dry climate. For the most part, a tree can be broken down into four main parts: the root system, the bole, the trunk, and the crown. And a tree is not an umbrella or a lollipop shape. The first thing a tree does is sprout its taproot. This is a long root that goes straight down from where the seed originally germinates. This is your tree's mouth, so to speak. Or maybe the tongue. You get the idea. This is what gives it its main nutrients and water. Now, the main and most massive part of a tree structure is the bole. B-O-L-E. The bole is the section of the tree from the ground to the first set of limbs. The trunk is the whole of the tree's body from ground to peak. As a tree grows upward, the root system will throw off more and more lateral roots to ground it and give it more stability. These roots very often stop at the drip line of the crown, but different climates will cause a tree to construct the right root system for its needs. A wet system, less and shallow roots. A dry system, more roots and deeper. When the limbs divide, it can take on one of two major shapes, a weak V or a strong U. These areas are called the crotch. Go ahead, get your jokes out. I'll wait. Are you ready? Okay. The crotch is not a branch, but is closer to a branch than it is a limb, often confused terms in tree speak. A crotch is just a large branch where the tree divided. A strong U is the optimal joint for a tree to take. The weak V is the exact opposite and is a risk for damage in the future. The bark of the branches becomes included into the joint, and after a while will no longer be able to hold the weight of the limb, and it will become weak, eventually snapping or ripping away from the trunk, potentially leaving a tear and scar. When the tree reaches maturity, it will begin growing its scaffolding branches. These are the branches directly above the bole. After these limbs are produced, any limbs that form under this point will be temporary branches. The sole purpose of temporary branches is to give a boost of energy consumption. After that need is filled, these branches will harden off or die back. Hardening off will leave a stub, and dieback can leave a wound or cavity. The largest scaffolding branches are referred to as boughs, and they are any limbs coming off of the main trunk of a tree, but not a structural part of the trunk, often bending due to gravity pulling them down. The smallest limbs are called twigs, and twigs are vertically growing limbs that reach a terminus. Any limb that forms directly off of the trunk growing vertically is a leader, and sometimes a double leader. The first branches off of a scaffold are secondary scaffolds. They branch off of the scaffold. Anything beyond these branches are called laterals, just like with the root system. Water sprouts and suckers are limbs developed for extra water absorption. Suckers tend to come up from the roots or out from the bole, while water spouts will come from the base of a scaffold branch. They grow straight up and don't produce buds, leaves, or spurs. Branches divide in twos and threes. A leader is the outward growing limb which will either give off two spurs to the sides together, or alternating left and right, or it can divide into a double leader, becoming two outward reaching limbs reaching a terminus. Crooks and crossovers are up next. A crook is when a limb takes an abrupt and sudden change in direction for an unknown reason. These crooks can develop due to damage, changes in light, or even from push and pull of interacting with other branches. Crossovers are similar to crooks, but differ in the fact that they will cross over the trunk of the tree. The prime characteristic of a crossover is that they form on one side of the tree, but end up growing to fill the space on the opposite side of the tree. Neither of these are a problem as long as they don't make contact with the trunk or other branches. This contact can cause rubbing, which will cause damage or scars and sometimes inclusion of the branch into the dominant structure. Trees, like all other plants, will follow the sun across the sky. The next day, it starts following the sun again, but using the face that catches the light, continuing the turn from the day before. There is no reset. This can cause trees to develop twists. These twists can be subtle or severe depending on environment. These twists are often seen in the bole of the tree, and depending on root placement, this can cause a basal cavity, which is a gap in the bole caused by growth and twist folding around itself as it expands. As trees grow and spread, they still try to maintain that optimal shape. Even if there is damage to the trunk and leaders, the tree is going to attempt to fill into that optimal shape, increasing growth to fill an area that it could no longer reach within that damaged area. And this all brings us to filling out the crowns. When drawing or painting trees, people have a tendency to try and make every little branch, and they try to make them perfect. But because of the way light plays on the tiny angles and fades into the sky, they virtually disappear. So if everything is perfect, it looks wrong. Does that make sense? I hope so. So fake it at the end and get real loose with it. It really will make a world of difference in your end results. Don't connect every little branch to a branch that previously came before it. Well, that's about it for this video. I hope you found it entertaining and educational. I hope you learned something that you didn't know before and will maybe incorporate into your next landscape. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.